All right. So if I'm going to start unpeeling this onion that is what the shift work, what sleep deprivation, these other areas are doing to our first responders, I think it's important to address specifically the firefighter work week, the reality versus the myths. We are our own worst enemy because we use verbiage like, oh, I work 1 day on, 2 days off, or I only work 9, 10 days a month. And this is something that the public listens to, the public believes. And like I said, we believe this kind of mythology that we've told ourselves. So I'm a big fan of analogies and things to demonstrate. So I'm going to use these poker chips, even though I hardly ever play cards, just to kind of illustrate my point. So the average firefighter work day is 24 hours usually. We have a variation of shift patterns, but overall, you're going to see the average is going to be a 24-48, 24 hours solid work, 48-hour period, rest period before we go back to a 24-hour. There may be an additional, we call Kelly Day, a little bit of time off. There are some different shift patterns. I'm going to get onto why even some of the alternative patterns are also just as bad for our health. So let's talk about first 1 day on, 2 days off. So that would equate to 10 days a month in a 30-day month. So the 10 days a month, that sounds fantastic. And I would love to just work, 10 days a month or have 1 day on and then 2 days off. However, the average work day, I think it's universally recognized, is about a 9-hour day with a 1-hour lunch. So you're talking about 8-hour compressed work days. Each of these days that we talk about in the fire service are 24 hours solid working. And I think a big misunderstanding locally among some of the employers of our local fire departments is that a lot of our men and women sit around watching, Springer reruns, petting the Dalmatian, playing cards, and waiting for the occasional call. I would argue against that. Go stand on whatever artery road runs through your city or town and listen for sirens. I guarantee you're going to hear siren after siren after siren, because the modern day fire service, more often than not, is coupled with EMS, emergency medicine. They are usually running 24 hours nonstop. I mean, genuinely nonstop. Some areas are more quiet, but most of us, it may not be back to back to back, but between that and the training and the paperwork, the reports we got to type, testing hydrants, installing smoke alarm, it's a nonstop thing. And I can tell you right now that I would go into my bunk around 10, and then you'd be woken up 2, 3, 4 times during that time as well. But up to that, I wouldn't say most people show up at 8 a.m. and work solidly through to 10 p.m. only to try and get some sleep and then be woken up again. So it truly is a 24-hour work week. And if we're not running calls, what we should be doing is training, preparing, exercising, etc. So let's take these 10 days a month. This is what people think is a work day. This is actually our work day. 1, 2, 3 work days compressed together to make one firefighter work day. So now your 10 becomes 30 days a week. 38-hour days a week. 30 days a month. So every single day we're working, if you think about the 8-hour day. So that 24-48 that we talk about, 24 hours is 3 days compressed together. The last third of those 3 days, the last 8 hours, usually are in that second day. So what it actually is 3 days on, 1 day off. So again, 30 days a month. The other thing that I hear a lot is that, oh, but we've got this great innovative solution. Now we're working 48-96. Okay, or we're going to come in at 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. The problem with that is no one is saying, hey, what about this? Why is it that the men and women who are in this fire station for 24 hours, away from their families for 24 hours, that are doing this mental, arithmetic with their drug calculations and their training, and then this physical fitness training, and then we're doing operational training, pulling hose and throwing ladders, and then, we get some sleep in the middle of the night. At 3 a.m, we might have to get up, jump into the front seat of an emergency vehicle, drive lights and sirens through, whatever traffic is there, get to this building, then pull tools and cut someone out of a car, or climb into a burning building and do a right-hand search and try and find someone. Now we do actually manage to facilitate a rescue. A lot of us then go into paramedic mode. Now we're working a code. We're doing drug calculations and compressions and all these other things, trying to get an airway. We're okay with them working 56-hour minimum work week, because that's what this works out to be. A 24/48 is a 56 hours a week minimum, bare minimum. But the people making these decisions are okay working 40 hours a week and then going back to their beds and sleeping in the same room as their family. So when you talk about this 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. or 4896, or the one I worked in California, which was like one on, one off, one on, one off, one on, one off, and then it'd be 4 or 6 off. It looks great, but it's still a 56-hour work week. So to use another analogy for people my generation, you got a Rubik's Cube. Okay, well, this was all colors on each side. Now I'm going to spin it and spin it. Now it's different colors. The cube's still the same. We haven't fixed the problem. You've just kind of, smoke and mirrors it a bit, and we still have the same exact issue. So this is why, in my opinion, we need to have what I would call the industry standard should be the 24/72. That brings it down to a 42-hour work week, equal, if not a little bit more than most civilians work. The other issue that we have, I've talked about, is you get a 24/48 schedule, like Marion County, the county around me that's just lost 2 firefighters to suicide within the last 3 weeks. Now you add mandatory overtime, another 3 8 hours compressed together. So this 56-hour week has now become an 80-hour week. And usually, and I can say this usually because in 2 of the departments I worked at, they were woefully understaffed and I got mandatory. Now you're doing that a couple of times. Now you're talking about, what is that? 30 plus 6, so 36 days a month. So this amazing firefighter schedule, I did it because then I have all this time off. Think about not sleeping every 3rd day, how tired you are the next day. For anyone that's ever had children, the baby, when it kept you up, how exhausted you were the next day. Every single 3rd day, sometimes 2 days in a row if you get mandatory, or if you're in this 48/96 schedule, it's slowly making you worse and worse and worse. So before we unpack why this is killing us, we have to understand that we are our own worst enemy. Until we stop saying that we have this amazing schedule and I work, 9 days a month, that's fallacy, that's myths. 24 hours is not 1 day's work. So I always kind of throw some links and some resources to you at the end of each of these videos. I would say go to episode 6 of the Behind the Shield podcast. It's an old one, so it may not be on iTunes. You might have to go to my actual site, Kirk Parsley, and listen to that interview. The best sleep book at the moment is actually Lifetime. A lot of people, Matthew Walker's book is great, but this one is kind of like the granddaddy of circadian rhythm, chronobiology of our generation. He talks about sleep, shift work and some of the issues that are going on. I've had him on my show as well. And then from a firefighter's layman perspective, my book, One More Light, I talk about this in one of the chapters as well. This is basically a bunch of short stories. Each one addresses each of the issues that I'm going to be talking about, from sleep deprivation to addiction to overcoming back injury and all these other ones. So that's a resource too. But the podcast, the Behind the Shield podcast, is completely free. It's 730 episodes as of today. And it's for you. If you have Wi-Fi, it's a free resource for you. So when people say, I want to see the research, show me the studies, I have got some of the world's experts on all these topics. But for all of us in the fire service, until we get on the same page and take a step back and go, look, we don't have horse-drawn carts anymore. There's not Dalmatians in the station, thanks to the lawsuit mentality. We're not sitting around smoking cigars and playing cards. We're responding to a spectrum of calls, 24 hours at a time, 56-hour work weeks at a minimum, 30 days a month. So we as a profession have to finally say, look, our profession has evolved, almost devolved work week. We have to bring ourselves back to all the other industries that have addressed sleep deprivation and adjusted accordingly. I'm not saying split shifts up. That is shown to be a horrible solution, but we must give more rest and recovery between shifts.